What's poppin', y'all? Welcome back to another episode of NBA Weekly. I'm your host, Pee Wee the Plug. It feels amazing to be back. For a while, we had a little dry spell in the NBA, a lot of just rumors and talk and speculation, but we finally have a move. Donovan Mitchell, as you all know, will be headed to the Cleveland Cavaliers for, this is a lot, I'm going to have to read off, 3 unprotected first-round picks in 2025, 2027, and 2029. The rights to 2 pick swaps in 2026 and 2028. Laurie Marketing, Colin Sexton, who was a part of a sign and trade where he signed a 4-year extension for $72 million. So he'll be making around 18 per. Very, very nice bag for young bull. And then, of course, Ochai Agbaji, the rookie who was selected, I believe, 14th out of Kansas University. You know, right off the jump, the Cavaliers look to propel up into the Eastern Conference standings. Based off this offseason, a lot of teams got better. The only team that really come to mind when you talk about not getting better is the Miami Heat. Now, I'm not knocking the Miami Heat. Whenever you still have Bam Adebayo, Jimmy Butler, the reigning 6th man of the year, Tyler Hero, and the culture that they have. And they have some solid things sprinkled around. I think Kyle Lowry is due for a bounce back year. We have high hopes for Victor Oladipo. You still have Max Strus, who grew into a supreme role for them last year. But I do think the loss of P.J. Tucker and not addressing that could potentially, be something that they need to fix or figure out during the season, one way or another. Trade deadline, buyout market. I don't know how they're going to do it. Maybe Cody Martin holds it down, but that definitely needs to be addressed. And it was a little disappointing that they didn't address it. But the Cavaliers, now when you look at them, from their top 4 of Darius Garland, Donovan Mitchell, Evan Mobley, and Jared Allen, those are 4 all-star caliber players. Evan Mobley coming off an amazing rookie year where he was arguably the rookie of the year. Darius Garland, first-time all-star. Jared Allen, first-time all-star both last year. And Donovan Mitchell has always been an all-star caliber player. On paper, the Cavaliers look extremely well. I'm also a fan of Isaac Okoro. I do know he needs to take strides offensively, but what he does defensively, you have to love. You still have Karis LeVert coming off that bench. They re-signed Ricky Rubio. There are some things in Cleveland that you have to love. Also, we're expecting another step in the right direction from Evan Mobley. Guys like him, it's very hard to predict or expect what the second year is going to look like. Like I said, he had such an amazing rookie year, but guys like him who shape up and look to be eventually elite, they sometimes take a huge second-year step. Like a lot of us are predicting, a huge step for Cade Cunningham or Scotty Barnes, the Evan Mobley. So when you talk about the elite of the elite, if Evan Mobley does take a huge, monumental, second-year step, this team could be even scarier. We're talking about a team that has now 4 guys that are all potentially top 10 in their position. That's going to be extremely interesting to watch, especially when you look at what they gave up. I'm not mad at the Cavs because I feel like this is the one way they were going to be able to get a talent of Donovan Mitchell's caliber. I don't think guys like Donovan Mitchell are going into free agency signing with the Cleveland Cavaliers. That's very rare, if we're being honest. The days of them having high draft picks to get a Evan Mobley or Donovan Mitchell, those days are probably over due to the fact of how good they played last year and how good we expect them to be going into this year. So you take advantage of a situation where you have not necessarily a superstar. Donovan Mitchell isn't, a top 10 player or anything in the league, but he's an all-star guy who at times plays at a superstar level during the playoffs. And I love it for them because they have now a miniature backcourt because Donovan Mitchell is an undersized 2, but they have the Twin Towers in the front court, so hopefully that can neutralize them defensively one way or another. And hopefully, like I said, Isaac Okoro can find a way to evolve offensively to where he doesn't stick out as a sore thumb or a negative for them, and he can have value on that offensive end to fit because they're going to need his perimeter defense on the other side of the basketball. And now when we talk about the Utah Jazz, they're now in a position where they have a lot going on. And I'm like I said on Twitter, I am very, very in love with the way Danny Ainge does his rebuilds, right? I'm not the biggest fan of Danny Ainge because I'm a Knicks fan and he's from the Celtics. That's just the way it is. Danny Ainge is not. I don't know. When it comes to the Knicks fans, if you're a Knicks fan, you understand. I don't. It's just something about Danny Ainge and the Celtics that I just don't like. We kind of had a fake rivalry, and then we kind of dipped off from being good, both franchises, for a while. So the rivalry kind of went under the wraps, and now he didn't give the Knicks Donovan Mitchell, so now there's still a even more disdain. But I love the way he does his work. He plays the actual NBA game as if it's 2K. So I'm just gonna read off these assets and things that they have since trading Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert. Which was the big topic of what they would do going into the offseason. Who would they pick? And they traded both, which I think ultimately was the right decision. But you now have Malik Beasley, Leandro Balmero, Walker Kessler, who was a first round pick, the 22nd overall, Jared Vanderbilt, Colin Sexton, Lauri Markkanen, Ojai Abaje, who was the 14th overall pick, Taylor Horton-Tucker, Stanley Johnson, 7 first-round picks, and 3 first-round pick swaps. And you have to remember, out of those 7 first-round picks, I believe 6 may be unprotected. I could be wrong, but on the top of my mind, I think 6 are unprotected. So when I look at the Rudy Gobert trade, I have that pulled up too. They have the 2023, 2025, 2027 first-round picks without protection. So that's 3 from there. And then we go to the Donovan Mitchell trade. And then they have 3. So they have 6 total unprotected future first-round picks, including their own picks that they have. And not to mention, a thing that a lot of people don't bring up is the fact that they traded Royce O'Neal to Brooklyn for a first-round pick. So they also have another pick from that. They still have Jordan Clarkson, who I think is going to be a very attractive and valuable asset for contending playoff teams around the league once the season starts. They still have Bojan Bogdanovic on the last year of his contract at around 17, 18 million. I think that's going to be a lucrative asset to have for teams like the Miami Heat, who we talked about in the previous part of this video. You still have Mike Conley. Not sure what a Mike Conley market looks like, but you know, as far as the direction that they're going, I don't know how much Mike Conley fits. They may say, hey, let's just keep Mike Conley. The market ain't that crazy for him. He's a veteran point guard. He'll work well in the locker room with a lot of the young talent that we have. But I love the direction that the Utah Jazz are going in. If you're going to rebuild and you're going to reset, this is the way to do it. Don't drag it out. Get as many assets as you can. Get a lot of young talent. Colin Sexton now is going to be able to hoop. You know what I mean? We don't have to worry about anything. I think we're going to see Colin Sexton just out there balling and hooping. We're going to see the same thing from Lauri Markkanen. And then you have 2 extra, technically first-round picks as well, because you got Walker Kessler, who was a first-round pick, and Ochai Agbaji, who was a first-round pick. So it's like you really got about 10 first-round picks altogether. And now you got those guys who are going to be able to hoop. I think Jared Vanderbilt is going to be a nice piece. The Utah Jazz are in a fun position. If I was a fan of a team that was rebuilding, this is the route and the way I would want my team to go personally. I'm not a fan of being in that stuck period as a franchise or being a part of a fan base. That base or that situation where you're competitive, but you're not competitive enough to win a championship. You know what I mean? You're also not losing enough to have high valuable picks and draft assets, so you kind of just stuck in this tier. And I felt like the Utah Jazz, you know, were stuck there. And because of the Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert, because of the dynamic they had to the team, if you traded one of them and tried to keep the other, the team was gonna fall apart. You know, Rudy was their backbone defensively, and Donovan was their backbone offensively. It just wasn't enough to compete in the Western Conference and in the overall landscape of the league. They just didn't have enough, and they didn't have enough wiggle room to go out there and get that third perfect piece that they, you know, could have gone out to propel them. I felt like they tried it with Mike Conley. Very good pickup. Just wasn't enough. Bogdanovich helped them. It was an amazing pickup. Just wasn't enough. Jordan Clarkson, they went out and got. Just wasn't enough. They tried a lot of different routes to propel this team into the higher upper echelon as far as Western Conference Finals, NBA Finals appearances. And it looked like they had a real chance. But time and time again, they just fell short. So when you do that, you know, you run its course as quick as you can while your players have extreme value. You go forward and you go forward and you rebuild and you hit that reset button. Now Quinn Snyder's gone. You have a young coach in Will Hardy who's going to be patient and developmental to a lot of these young players that they're going to have. And you have a bunch of new, fresh talent who's going to, be taking the situation to prove something for themselves. I love this situation for a Larry Marketing type guy who just had a bounce back year with Cleveland. He's probably feeling as confident as ever. And now he's in a situation where he has even more room to grow and let his wings spread. Same thing with Colin Sexton. He kind of got forgotten about with the Cavaliers' success, and it became the Darius Garland show, rightfully so, and the Jared Allen and Evan Mobley. He kind of got lost in the shuffle with his injury. This is a great situation for him to return to, where he could just get back on the court, regain his health, and really go out and find his identity as a basketball player with a nice secure deal, 4 years, $72 million. Same thing with these other young guys like Ochai Agbaji and Walker Kessler. They just get to come in, be developed, play, and hoop. Malik Beasley is also another guy that can go with the Jordan Clarkson and Bogdanovich trade pieces during the season. I feel like Malik Beasley is the type of talent that a lot of teams would also want come trade deadline. And then also, I forgot, they got THT. THT is a young guy like Marketing and Colin Sexton who deserves a chance to be able to go somewhere, play freely, gain their identity, and let their wings spread to grow and develop as basketball players. THT was in a tough situation in Los Angeles where they went from kind of like, being young and fun to boom, LeBron comes, and now it's just competitive basketball, nonstop. We're trying to bring in veterans. We're not really valuing our young talent. We actually traded and moving all of our young talent for more veteran presence so we can win a championship. And during that mix, he kind of got lost in the shuffle. There was a time where his value was extremely high, and the Lakers didn't want to trade him, to now he just got thrown into a deal for Patrick Beverley because they're at such a weird place as far as competing. Now, we talked about the Jazz. We talked a little bit about the Cavs. I think the Cavs are extremely interesting with this trade. I'm trying to gauge how high I think they can get in the Eastern Conference hierarchy as far as this season goes. Future-wise, because a lot of these guys are still young, I think they have a bright future. Darius Garland is still young. Donovan Mitchell is still young. Evan Mobley is only in his second year. Jared Allen is still young. They have 4 pillars in that roster for the next few years that I think over time, they're going to become a very, very elite team. At least they should be. Now, as far as this year, they're still the playing together, the gelling, finally seeing exactly what the second year for Evan Mobley is going to look like. How is Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell backcourt going to look? How is it going to fit one another? I don't have any doubts in my mind about it. I think Darius Garland is one of the, the young point guards that's slowly rising that a lot of people don't talk about because Trae Young and Ja Morant dominate that conversation. As far Luka's already in his own tier, but when you talk about the young guards, that's just a dominated conversation by Ja and Trae Young. But to me, Darius Garland is creeping up there in that conversation. I'm not saying he's better. I'm not saying I would take him over them. But right now, he's slowly creeping up more into the conversation than I think a lot of people realize. People might think that that's only a Cleveland Cavalier fan base thing. But me watching Darius Garland, there's not a lot of holes there, especially on the offensive side of the basketball. There's just not a lot of holes there. And as long as he has the 2 twin towers behind him and a guy like Isaac Okoro on the perimeter, he should be able to be okay defensively. But offensively, the pick and roll, the shot making, the floater, the way he runs an offense at such a young age, he's creeping up into that conversation for sure. Now, the main thing people want me to talk about is the fact that my Knicks didn't get Donovan Mitchell. And the one thing I'm going to say about that is that, yeah, it is a little disappointing because it kind of felt like Donovan Mitchell was almost a guaranteed Knick at one point. It's obvious he wanted to play for the Knicks. It's obviously we wanted him, and it's obvious that a lot of the stock was, into us getting him. It just looked certain. So the Cavaliers coming in and swooping in, out of nowhere, I tip my hats off to them. The one thing I will say about the Knicks is I'm glad we didn't do it. Right, when I see some of the reports about what we was trying to give up, what they were asking, what they wanted, I'm kind of fine we didn't go off on a deal. The Knicks right now, we're just not in a situation that's as good as the Cavaliers. And that's just me being honest. Everybody knows me. I'm a Knicks fan. I love my Knicks, but I've never been an extreme biased Knicks fan. The Cavaliers are in a much better situation than us to pull a deal like that off, because if we made the same type of deal, or we gave up RJ and Quentin Grimes with the unprotected picks and all of that, we bringing in Donovan Mitchell, Jalen Brunson with Julius Randle and Mitchell Robinson. I don't know if that's I don't know how good that is for us. And that hurts our chances down the line to adding anything to that mix, because we would be giving up a lot of draft capital and a lot of the youth that's attractive to the rest of the league. So and then there's the whole thing where we signed RJ to the extension. So out of spite, Danny Ainge and the Jazz just didn't really want to take any deal from us, after that. And they just really just went with the Cavaliers one just out of spite, which again, if anybody's operating that way, there's no need for us to go above and beyond, to try to make up for the spite that they have against us, because then we just getting finessed and finagled. And everyone knows that that's the mindset Danny Ainge has. Danny Ainge is cut from the cloth where if he has something valuable that other people around the league want, he's going to try to finesse it. And when he knows you're desperate and you'll do anything, he's going to say no and no and no until he walks away with a highway robbery. That's the position that the Knicks were falling into. So I am actually applauding the front office and Leon Rose for saying, okay, we tried. We worked with you as much as we can. That's too much for us. We're going to go in a different direction. And that's what happened. So as a Knicks fan, I'm happy. Obviously, you always want a guy like Donovan Mitchell to be a part of your team. But for me, it's at what price? And what is the next steps for us after we get Donovan Mitchell? Because just bringing him to the Knicks isn't enough. Don't let Knicks fans fool you. People do not believe that we get Donovan Mitchell and we're just one of the top teams, and it just don't work like that, especially if we're giving up RJ Barrett, especially. And then you take into consideration, like I said, all of the draft capital we would have gave up. Where do we roll out the rest of the team? How do we figure that out? So I think this is an amazing trade for the Cavaliers because they were in one of the best situations to land Donovan Mitchell with still having things around him to have a competitive team, unlike my New York Knicks. I think they did a good job swooping in out of nowhere, taking advantage of the situation, knowing that there was some type of friction between the Jazz and the Knicks, and they came right in at the perfect time. This catapults them. This elevates them. And for the next few years, it's going to be extremely exciting to see. And at the end of the day, I still think that the Jazz walk away with this, as winners as well. I think this potentially could be a situation where both teams walk away as winners. Obviously, the Cavaliers are going to have to go on the court and prove it, and it just can't be a good roster on paper. But as of right now, I would pick them to do some amazing things this upcoming season, and I think the Jazz have one of the brightest futures in the NBA as far as draft capital, young talent, and the money that's about to be freed up for them. So overall, I give a lot of A+ out. I'm not going to lie. Like I said, it's disappointing that we didn't get Donovan Mitchell, me being a Knicks fan. But you always have to ask yourself, at what price is a player like Donovan Mitchell worth? And if he's not a top 10, one of those top guys that can really carry you into being a hierarchy team, then you have to make sure that you don't go over that price line, because then you find yourself in a situation where you put him in a place where he just got out of, which is like Utah, where we one piece away, and that would have been not the smartest situation. So that's my overall view on it. I love it. I love getting trades this late in the season. What is it, September 2nd? This is beautiful. We're a few weeks away from the season starting, 2K dropping, all these different things. So it's very unusual to get trades like this late. But I think the NBA is on fire right now, and this has been one of the best off seasons in a while. We still got some guys like Carmelo Anthony out there in the free agency market. And I don't think any moves are going to be done. Like, I think this is a season where early moves in the first parts of the season could be had, because a team like Utah just has so many pieces that a lot of teams are going to be interested in. So it's going to be dope to see how it plays out. As always, I appreciate you guys tuning in and watching. I'm Pee Wee the Plug. This is NBA Weekly. I'll see you guys in the next episode. I'm out. Peace.